Hey everybody, welcome to the Song Revolution podcast, brought to you by Nashville Christian Songwriters. Nashville Christian Songwriters exists to empower Christian songwriters worldwide. I'm John Chisholm, and this podcast exists to bring you valuable songwriting insights, inspiration, interviews, and just all around good fun with some of the greatest songwriters, producers, arrangers, artists, and creatives, and beyond. You can find out a whole lot more about us at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com.
Hey everybody, John Chisholm here. Welcome to the Song Revolution podcast again this week. It's going to be part 2 of building an audience for your music with Treehouse Media's Peter Hartzell. And you know, this podcast is really all about keeping you engaged with your ministry, with your career, with your calling to write great songs for Jesus. We know that your heart is full of love, full of praise for Him, and we're here to help you get that out. And everything that we do from the podcast all the way through everything that we offer in our coaching resources is to empower you. So thanks for being here. We know that you're going to get a lot out of the show today. I want to mention really quick that we are now sponsored by Word Worship Music. You can run over to wordworship.com and check them out. Lots of great artists. Sarah Reeves, Meredith Andrews, Big Daddy Weave, Benji Cowart is a great writer. Benji's written some amazing things. Benji, don't know if you listen to the show, but man, we miss you here in Nashville. Hope you're doing well where you are, but man, you're such a talent, and I'm so thankful to be acquainted with you and know your work. Your song Redeemed, man, that's a great song, and just love who you are, what you do, and all the great word worship artists and songwriters. So you guys jump over to wordworship.com, check them out. Glad to have them on the show as a sponsor. Want you to know we've got some information coming up through the show about our April intensive that's coming up April 25, 6, 7. It's off the chains. We have an incredible A-list group of clinicians this time around. Tom Jackson of Tom Jackson Productions, got Craig Adams from Lifeway, got Kenna Turner West from Curb Word Music. This girl's written over 30 number one songs, and she's not showing any signs of stopping yet. It's just amazing. We love Kenna. She's an amazing clinician and coach, and she's going to be with us, and we're going to be over at Centricity Music on Thursday night, April 25, for a barbecue dinner with John Mays, founder and A&R director for such wonderful people. Well, founder of Centricity, but great A&R director for people like Lauren Daigle, Jason Gray, Johnny Diaz, so many more there on Centricity. So great things coming up. You can always jump over to NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com and check out everything that we are bringing you to help you fulfill your calling. So today, part 2 with Peter Hartzell of Treehouse Media. I'm actually sitting in his lovely penthouse studio.
Oh my gosh.
No, it's great, man. So Peter, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you.
Already love working with you.
Absolutely.
We have some great plans coming up for the show.
Yes, we do.
Over the next 6 months, we're excited to be sponsored. I mean, Word is our first official sponsor.
Yeah.
Nashville Christian Songwriters sponsors the show, of course, provides it, but to have our first sponsor that is so awesome.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
it's interesting because when we first started chatting about, or you started telling me about this idea with Word, as a sponsor for a record label to sponsor a podcast is pretty. It's an interesting idea because typically your sponsors are going to be somebody that has like a physical product or something that they're offering, and I think for Word, the name of the game is exposure, and they have some really amazing artists, songwriters, and you've already been featuring some of their artists as guests, as it were. So it was a natural partnership bringing them on board and getting to feature some more of their amazing songwriters. Obviously, for you listening, your aspirations to one day hopefully get some recognition or some traction with a record label like Word, and actually get to start writing some songs that get some.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we're about. And I think that's where we want to center today's program on. Part 1, we centered more on the need for coaching and mentoring to get where you want to go. Mm-hmm. And today we're going to be bringing some practical tips and direction.
Right.
Okay, fun fact about me, Peter. I don't like tips, tricks, and hacks. It just kind of torques me off because
I hear you.
I feel like, if we're really called to something, we're not looking for shortcuts.
That's
right?
good. That's really good.
And so anybody, I don't want to be condescending at all, but I live my life by principles. I live my life by the word. I don't do the little scripture box, where you just randomly like scripture roulette or something, but it's like, no, I want to live my life by being grounded in principles that work in the kingdom of God through the word of God. Right.
Yeah,
and so I don't know. I just think tips, tricks, and hacks are the lazy man's way, and we need to dig into our calling.
Yeah. Well, and as we talked about on the last episode, finding mentorship and surrounding yourself with people that have been where you want to be or where you want to go is so essential to a successful, to anything, to success in anything that you put yourself to. But that isn't a short, easy road. I mean, being mentored by someone requires that you really buy into the long game. And you're not just looking for, hey, just get me on track and then I don't need you anymore and I'll do it on my own. It's like, hey, I want you to walk with me on this journey. And we talked about this last time. That's what NCS is here for, is to walk with you. Right.
We hit on a couple of things. I just want to kind of reiterate before we get into some of the content for today.
Yeah.
And that is that we're in a new music economy, and the whole paradigm of a very talented person being discovered by a record company or a publisher is really a very small, and then made a star or whatever, is a very small percentage. And so the rest of us build a tribe. The rest of us build a platform. The rest of us use our talents and our gifts, but we have to employ YouTube and the internet and understand more about tech these days and really help connect people with our message. And that seems like a lot of work, and it is a lot of work, which is what you do and why you're here on the show and how you're helping us do our thing. But I think the thing that was most important as I listened back through last week's show, that when we were talking and kind of ranting about some stuff, is really getting in touch with your mission. Really understanding that, okay, you have a calling, but it's about more than just being recognized as being a talented person. You have a message, you have a healing message or a testimony, you got saved, you got delivered from something, or you just have this powerful desire to bring people into an atmosphere of worship. And that's what we want to center on, is what is that calling, so that you can begin to build an audience around your message. And I don't care how talented you are, if you don't do that in today's economy, you're going to be sitting there wondering why nobody cares. You've made a song, created a great song, made a great demo, you throw it out there on YouTube, and then, one view, and that was your mom. So, right?
Man, that's a basic tenet of marketing, is providing quality. We were just talking about this before, providing quality content that's, that people really will benefit from and find value in. And as a musician, sometimes we don't think of ourselves as business owners. We don't think of ourselves as marketers. But like you hit on it, it's a good way of thinking about it is, what are my values? What is the thing? What is the mission that I carry? And and how do I best communicate that mission? And that is true in any business, in any endeavor is, before you do anything, you have to define your why. You have to define your mission and really be able to clearly then articulate and communicate that to someone, sometimes in a quick elevator ride, what they call an elevator pitch for a reason. Be able to communicate that quickly, but then also be prepared to give a more in-depth description of what it is that you offer. And a lot of times for songwriters, we do that through our music. We use our song to communicate our big vision and what it is that we're called to, and our message. And if you're setting out to be a songwriter and you're looking at the formulas and you're looking at what other people are doing to be successful and you just try to replicate that, does that ever work? I mean, I don't know. I to me, when I hear a song that seems like a replication of something else, it actually puts a bad taste in my mouth towards that artist or that songwriter, whoever it was. And it's a lot harder for me to come back to them and give them a second shot. So from the very beginning, if you know your why, and there are some artists that are kind of similar. They have a similar sound. They also have a similar message and a similar mission, but they do it unique. They do it in their own way.
They put their own spin on it.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's okay. So that's not what I'm talking about, but it's, if you're a huge fan of, John Mayer, and, John's a great guitar player and you play kind of like John and you just try to imitate everything he does, people are going to kind of sniff that out.
Sure. Yeah, totally. I mean, there's similarities, between artists. And,
yeah, totally.
Lauren Daigle, some people say, well, she sounds just like Adele. There are similarities, that low alto voice and kind of the way they've stylized some of the things, but she is unique. And, the more I've gotten to know her work, it's like, well, no wonder she's a platinum artist. She deserves to be that. So, but she's found her why. And, it doesn't matter. So, hey, you have treehousemediaco.com.
That's it.
Treehouse Media is your company. Treehousemediaco.com is your site.
Yep.
And, we're again, for the third or fourth time this show, thankful to be working with you because you bring a lot of energy to what we're doing and kind of a new season for us. It's because of the way you approach marketing and thinking about, these kind of things. Don't want to talk about the show right now. I really want to talk about you and your thing. But you're going to be doing a masterclass for our NCS members on March 23rd. This is March 2019 if you're listening to this in the year 20,041.
Oh my gosh.
But we're in March
awesome.
March of 2019. And on the 23rd, you're going to be doing an hour and a half live interactive masterclass for our members, which is one of the benefits of being an NCS member is to go deeper into content and to get your specific questions asked and to have some great interaction. So Peter's going to be doing that, you guys. But today, we wanted to bring you some more practical concepts and tools for you to think about. Let's just say that you are really wanting to begin this process of building an audience around your music. I think Peter's going to share a few things with us today that kind of lead us into that space of that conversation of what would it really take.
Yeah, well, thank you, obviously, for bringing me in. I mean, when we first had the conversation about partnering, it was, and I think I mentioned this last time, it was kind of a no-brainer for me because I am a songwriter and a musician, a worship leader, and I've kind of admired NCS from afar. The way that we connected was kind of serendipitous and just happened to kind of bump into each other, happened to be at the same church. And it was just a really cool thing. And so I just felt like there's been a natural progression towards partnering. And I think it's the right timing too, because I think you stepping into this new year, 2019, with some ambitious goals for this year, and needing to surround yourself with people that have the tools and the ability. Of course, like anything, you could do it all yourself, but you would be a shell of a person if you tried to do it all yourself. So being able to have and bring on other people, not only to leverage their experience and their ability, but also perspective. And that's such an important thing. And we'll kind of talk about that in a second as well for songwriters. But having other people around that have a different perspective can really kind of open things up. And we just talked before we started recording about some perspective with the podcast and getting some direction. And so Treehouse Media really was formed with an intentionality to create really impactful content that was valuable for all of my clients. The first question I ask is, kind of like what you said, what is your mission? What are you trying to accomplish? Are you just trying to make a bunch of money, or do you really have something of value to offer? And once we kind of zero or drill down on the mission, then we can really start to create content that is compensatory to the mission. And it's really effective. Of course, people respond best when they're being when they're encountering content that is meaningful, and people share content that's meaningful. You don't see people reposting stuff that's just kind of dumb and doesn't matter. You see people reposting things that matter to them, even if it does seem silly sometimes, And so for today, and we'll talk about this a lot more in the masterclass, we'll get into a lot more detail with some actual steps and some practical things that you can actually do. So if you're not a member yet, NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com, right on the homepage there, it says join now. You just click that link
right now.
Right. Yeah. Join now. Click that link. It's like $15 a month if you pay a year in advance, and you'll get access to these amazing masterclasses every month and lots of other great content. But so in this masterclass, we'll dive into more practical tips. For today, I think that the two things that I wanted to kind of hit on specifically were consistency and quality. And I think that those two things are most often missed. A lot of times we get excited when we're about to dive into a new project, or, I know for me, whenever I get an idea or I get inspiration, I will dive in really quick and I'll create a bunch of stuff and get my ideas on paper and maybe start to shoot a video or two, or write down my vision for the thing. And then I quickly lose steam, and then I get discouraged, and then I let it go by the wayside, and then I forget about it, and then I say, I'll circle back around down the road. And to me, a lot of times when I start to see that cycle in my life, I realize that may not be something that's really in line with my core calling, because if I can that quickly let it just kind of float off to the side, then maybe it's really not that important. Now, maybe it is really important, and I just need to actually buckle down and buy into my calling. As a songwriter, sometimes, I know a lot of people that are songwriters, you guys probably have normal jobs. You work, 40 hours plus a week. You got families, you've got church. Maybe you are on staff at a church. You have obligations, you've got soccer practice, and you've got music lessons and all this stuff. And so finding the time and being intentional about finding time to write consistently is absolutely essential. It's a really big deal. And now, of course, there's songwriters here in Nashville that make a living writing songs. And so their job is to go to rights and to work with other people, but not everybody has that luxury. And so finding the time, being intentional, being disciplined to finding time to writing consistently, and also writing with other people, because like we talked about a second ago, that brings perspective. Having other people that bring, their experience to the table and bring their perspective on your songwriting will only make you a better writer. So being consistent, and I talk about this in the context of writing, but also in the context of interacting with your audience on social media and your email list. If you have an email list, great. If not, honestly, I don't stress email lists too much, because people don't read emails as much anymore as they used to. But social media is so important. And so putting things out there on a daily basis, or at least every other day, but being consistent. And then the next thing that I wanted to focus on too quickly was quality. And a lot of times in this culture, in fact, I was just thinking about this last night. There's a video going around the internet right now around Nashville of this, it was like a handy cam. This family was driving around Nashville in 1994, and they're taking video of all the hot spots in Nashville. And so it's kind of like they're on a family vacation. And the Tennessean just ran a little article about it a while ago, and they had the video. So you get to see what Nashville looked like in 1994. And there was no cuts, there was no music, there were no titles. Sometimes the audio was there, sometimes it wasn't, but it was just kind of like in and out. But it was cool because nostalgic. You get to see what Nashville looked like in the early 90s. And nowadays you get, we're so bombarded with content that, that same video would you'd have music, you'd have titles, you'd have all the slick editing and all this stuff. And you almost lose the authenticity or the coolness of what the video is actually about. Now, of course, it's an old video, so that's what it's all about. But a lot of times we look at the stuff, the extra little stuff that we can, or the spin that we can throw on our content, and and we actually mask the real meat or real quality of what it is that we have to share. So sometimes a quick and dirty cell phone video is actually a higher quality because the content is more organic and authentic than something that's really polished.
So higher quality engagement because
Absolutely.
it's more authentic.
More authentic. And now that's not always true. Sometimes like really high, things that have really high production value are important because that it's trying to serve a different purpose. You're trying to, you're trying to put out something that is polished, that's marketable and things like that. But a lot of times for you songwriters, you can be crippled by not creating content because you don't have the ability, the skill, the time, or whatever to take your little YouTube video or cell phone video of you singing one of your songs and do all the stuff that makes it look professional and cool. And so you don't put it out there. And now, of course, if it's a bad song,
then
it's not going to help. It's not going to help. But if it's a good song and it's really in line with your mission and you're like, man, this song communicates what God's put in my heart. This is a big piece of me, and I just need to get it out there. Sometimes just setting your cell phone up on even if you don't have a tripod, set your cell phone up on your desk or something. Just make sure you're in frame. Make sure you're close enough to the mic that it'll pick up your voice and your guitar or whatever, and just hit record. And pour out your soul onto that thing, and then post that thing on social media. Get it out, but do it consistently and make sure it's really quality stuff, because then people are going to really want to engage with you. They're going to buy into your mission because they feel you.
Right.
And that's something I think with this podcast is we're really trying to do as well, is really communicate in a little bit longer format. Guys, we hope that you feel us. Like, we're excited and passionate about helping you be all that you can be as a songwriter. And we're not just making content just for the sake of it. I got plenty of things I could do with my time. I know you do too.
Oh, goodness, absolutely.
So, but it's really important. It's meaningful. And we get to at least have a small piece in helping you come alive and really realize your vision and your mission as a songwriter. So it's meaningful for us, and it's worth the time to really dive in and create this content for you. Likewise, we want to encourage you to do the same thing.
Yeah. So let's go back to your first point of the consistency.
Sure.
Because I think a lot of times, a lot of the writers that I'm working with, that we've encountered over these last few years here at NCS, they're still just trying to figure out how to write a good song.
Yeah.
So they don't really, it's not like they have a song a week
Sure.
that they're going to really be able to create and post. And I can think of a number of people they're learning tons, and they're growing by leaps and bounds. But for them, maybe they're not even quite ready for this.
Sure.
Right. So it's like, I want to just be careful that we're not overloading them. I don't know what, or overwhelming them maybe
that
would be a better way to put it.
Yeah.
I think the consistency they need right now is just the writing discipline.
Absolutely.
And then when they feel that they've got something worth being heard, run it past their
filters.
The people that are walking with them, whether if they're a songwriting client or something. Of course, we're doing that for them. But if they're not, then their praise team, or they're someone that's not going to be so biased toward them that they're not going to get honesty. And totally. Say, okay, that song was 12 minutes long. And, I never heard one hook. You didn't repeat the same phrase twice, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But, to get some feedback that would be honest and helpful.
Yeah.
But so how does consistency, I just want to make sure we were very clear on what we mean by consistency, because for some people that could be daunting, I think.
Oh my gosh. Oh, it's so daunting. I mean, it's really hard. Consistency and quality, those are the two things they're both very daunting. Quality, because for one reason or another, you either feel like I don't have what it takes for me to put quality out or to make it look the way I think it should look. But then with the consistency piece, it's like, man, I got so much on my plate as it is, and I really want to be a songwriter, and I really have this stuff in me that I want to get out, but it can be a lot. And I think that as an NCS member, that's a first step to really getting access to I know you hate the word tips and tricks, but to tools, to
Right.
tools
Right.
and to, resources that are going to kind of smooth over those rough edges and help kind of take the edge off of that sting of, oh, I need to do this and I want to do this, but I just don't feel like I can do this. And then, so that would be the first step is just having a structured system around you where, when you get into that point where you're like, I just can't do this, there's a place where you can go to get the encouragement and to get some, maybe you got writer's block. And so you got jump starts to get over writer's block. And then consistently writing, I mean, that's just something, it's a discipline, like you said. Mm-hmm. It's a discipline. You have to be disciplined. If you're going to be a songwriter, you got to write songs.
Absolutely. Let me jump in because you bring up a really, really good point, and that is the community and the opportunity to post in a very safe, loving environment because what we do, we had forums in our site, and I just didn't like the way they were structured. So we moved over to Facebook, and we have an NCS membership Facebook group, where we're offering continued support. And of course, you get with the membership some great things like the monthly masterclass Peter's going to be on next week, and actually access to all the archives. But it's the community that's so important for us, because you can post as you're working through your songs, get valuable feedback, get some support, but just even getting into that habit for a while until you feel that you're strong enough to go post on YouTube. Because let's face it, guys, in the next 30 minutes, and I quoted this in the last podcast, in the next 30 minutes, 18,000 hours of video. And that's their stat. I didn't make that up.
I know.
18,000 hours of video is going to be added to YouTube alone, and a bunch of that's going to be music. So if you post a half-written song up there and you don't really have any means to get people to go look at it, you're just wasting your time and adding to the malaise. So
you might also be doing more damage to yourself too, because then people are, we talk about, or one of the things I talk a lot about is personal branding. And when you establish yourself, your brand, your image as someone that puts out half-written songs all the time.
Yes.
When you do start getting your cutting your teeth and really writing some good songs and ready to put out really good quality content, people aren't going to, like I said earlier about the copycats, people are going to have a hard time turning that off or forgetting that about you. And they're going to have a harder time taking you seriously. They're going to be expecting half-written songs. And then you start writing these great songs, it's going to take people a little bit to buy in. So
yeah, absolutely. And they say that the hardest meeting to get with a publisher is the second one. And it's kind of the same principle. It's like if people are like, I just want to get in front of a publisher. And it's like, well, you don't want to get in front of a publisher before you've got a bunch of people already following you and clamoring for your music. And the publishers and the record companies, they're looking for people that have hundreds of thousands of followers already. And that's why it's important to build your tribe, build an audience for your music, build value, so much value into your songs and your songwriting that people they're clamoring for it. And it does happen. And people are still discovered on YouTube.
Right.
So, it does happen.
Well, and in fact, I was just chatting with a friend who's at a record label the other day, and we were talking about that very thing. And he said, we're always scanning YouTube, and we're always looking for
who's getting a bunch of hits.
Yeah.
Right?
They look at metrics, they look at stats. And so if you start posting before your time, now, of course, we talk about wanting to be consistent in our posting, but also being intentional and making sure that when you do start posting, you're ready. You're ready to post. Do you have your own website? Do you have enough content that you feel like, and now, of course, we don't all need our own website. Facebook can be a good example of that.
Right.
Sometimes when you think of having your own website, you think your own URL. Not necessarily the case. Your Facebook page can be your website,
Right.
But are you really ready to release this stuff to the world? And are you feeling confident, like, okay, now I'm ready to do this, and I'm going to start putting stuff out consistently. And then when people start coming to you and looking for more, you're ready to give them more.
Exactly.
That's important.
Yeah,
So important.
I think people don't realize sometimes that the prep that goes into it. It's like, we talk so much about resourcing yourself, inspiring yourself, being the consistency in posting comes after you've been consistent in your discipline of writing.
Absolutely.
And learning this whole thing. It really is like building a separate business, kind of a cottage, your own home business, right? You're taking a hobby and you're amping it up into your own small business.
I always call it be consistent and be consistent. It's important to be consistent in your message and your messaging, and it's important to be consistent in your actions. And those actions are, in the beginning phase, those actions are diligent songwriting and co-writing. And then once you're to a point where you have lots of content, then being consistent about sharing that content and interacting. Respond to every message that people send you. Respond to comments when people ask you questions or praise you. When people critique you, don't be overly defensive. Don't be super sensitive. Sometimes that can be. I heard someone say a quote. Actually, it might have been you, but no. You know what? It was Stan Mosier. He said. He said. The image that you're putting out to the world, he said, be really careful about the things that you do and say online because they live on forever. And that you're one bad Twitter post away from destroying your entire career. Think of all the people that have done one stupid thing online and it ruined their career. Or even just, somebody else did something to them that wasn't even true, but it defamed them and they lost everything, or they lost all of their credibility.
You're scaring me, buddy.
Man, it's really, really important to again, intentionality, being consistent in your messaging, because when you're consistent in your messaging, when you're the same person behind closed doors as you are on Facebook, then, when accusations come your way or people start criticizing your work or things start happening, you've got an image that is reputable and people trust you. It's integrity and all that too, but
Hey, we're going to take just a quick break from the show so that we can let you in on some amazing things happening around here at Nashville Christian Songwriters. Hey guys, John Chisholm here, and I want to invite you to come hang out with me and some very special friends at the upcoming NCS Weekend Intensive. The NCS Weekend Intensive is a 3-day coaching, teaching, and networking experience where you get to come to Nashville and meet my great pro songwriter and music business friends. People like Kenneth Turner West, who's written over 30 #1 songs, and John Mays, founder and A&R director of Centricity Music, home of great artists like Lauren Daigle, Jason Gray, Johnny Diaz, Andrew Peterson, and so many more. Lifeway Worship's creative director Craig Adams will be joining us in April, as well as the premier live music producer Tom Jackson, who's worked with a bunch of amazing people like Lecrae, Shawn Mendes, Francesca Battistelli, Phillips Craig and Dean, and a budding young talent you might remember, Taylor Swift. We've got 3 hands-on coaching sessions where you get real-time feedback on your songs to get you to the next level, and our stellar clinicians bring you world-class teaching to empower and inspire you like never before. Now, these events fill up fast, so we're offering a pre-registration option where you can register early and save $100, and that's a great deal for anybody. NCS Weekend Intensives are happening in April, July, and October, so you can get to the one that's right for you. Just jump over to NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com, click the Weekend Intensive link to read about it, and pre-register today. Hey, I'm looking forward to hanging out with you soon at the NCS Weekend Intensive. Well, I just hope that you'll take advantage of that and check it out. All right? We bring you good stuff here on the Song Revolution podcast. So back to our episode.
When we first started this thing, just sidebar here for a moment, I was so sensitive, super sensitive when somebody didn't get what we were about and they would trash us, these trolls on Facebook. Yeah. I literally would cry. It's like it broke my heart, and I get it. They don't understand. There have been charlatans and fakes and all that, through these years, but I'm coming at this from, not just to defend myself, but I'm coming at this out of 42 years of ministry.
Right.
And not that makes me any more authentic. I don't know, but.
Well, and I was just going to say that, like, if you don't have any reputable feedback, if you don't have testimonials, especially after about 4 years of doing this, then maybe you should reevaluate. But you have no short. I mean, every single person that does your boot camp has rave reviews of the process, and also most of them are actually really effective right now in their career. You know, the ones that have really bought in are doing it.
Yeah, we need to do a big shout out to Terrence McCoy.
Oh my gosh, yeah, big time.
He was my first boot camp client 3.5 years ago, and I've not met anyone any more tenacious than Terrence, and he's been on the show. You can go back and listen to his episode here in the archives. But Terrence was so tenacious and so determined, and he was so confused in the way he wrote songs, right? I mean, he wanted to do this. He plays well, he sings well, and he just had this powerful testimony of how God's delivered him from addiction. And he just really wanted to do this thing, but he would write a song that had kind of a worship verse, and then it had this sweeping Broadway or Disney kind of chorus, and then a country bridge or something. And it was very confused, but he went through the boot camp. I kind of practiced on him as we were starting this thing, and we were almost to the end of it. And I know the day that he sent me a song, a demo, put a little love in it. And I literally, you guys, fell on my knees crying and laughing at the same time, because it's like, he got it. He got it. It's like, it's so worked. And then I coached him a little more, and then we did a record. It came out a year ago. It's called Transparency, and he's still charting, and he's doing singles now, and he's writing with some great people around town. He invested in the right way.
Yeah.
You know, and
he was ready. He was ready. Yeah. He was ready to do it. Like he wasn't ready as a writer. Like he didn't have it all together. But he was ready to be coached and mentored, and he was ready to do the work. You know, to go there. And I think a lot of people that are considering the boot camp. And I know you said you had talked to over 800 people.
Totally.
That
personally, one-on-one,
that want to do the boot camp, but they're not ready to do the boot camp, because when it comes time to the investment, and we talked about that on the last episode, it's like, well, maybe I'm not that ready. I'm not ready to really put my money where my mouth is, literally put my money where my mouth is, and invest in myself. Of course, the money part, that's just a piece, but it represents like I talked about this in the last episode, where you put your money, that's a biblical principle. That's right. where your treasure is, that's where your heart will be also. And if you really believe in the message that God's put inside of you, and you really are deadlocked on diving in and doing this thing, there literally isn't a better way to do that. I mean, you're not going to get hands-on, one-on-one coaching from someone that has the amount of experience that you do, John, in the industry. Not just as like an industry person, but like an actual songwriter, someone that has over 400 cuts. You know, I mean, that you could go down to Music Row and start throwing your demos out to people and trying to get attention, and maybe you'll get lucky and find someone. But this is a tried and true, calculated way that you you just have to send an email or click that join NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com. Join now. That's the first step.
Yeah, exactly.
Join, and then you're in the system. Right. Save your gas money driving down to Music Row or plane ticket to Nashville, and just join. You're on the first step, and now that's a way that you can at least just kind of get your foot in the door.
Exactly.
And the natural progression of getting involved and buying into the process.
Well, I think that's very true. And the thing about it is, what we're trying to do with every songwriter is move them from fantasy to reality.
Totally.
And dreaming is great, but the difference between a dream and a fantasy is, with a dream, you actually do something. Right. You put action, right? I mean, you at least eventually, if you're really want this, you've got to take one step.
Yeah.
At least one step. Fantasizing, okay, that's like, there's no action step. That's not going to happen. But what we want to do is bring, and that's the reason we talk so openly about how hard this is, how competitive this is, how so few people really take it all the way.
Yeah.
But if you are the kind of person where you are determined, like Terrence McCoy. Now, he's had a lot of help. Terrence Howell with Revival Music Company has come along and is doing the radio promotion. Jeff Quimby, who's a great producer here in town, worked at Integrity Music with him. He produced Transparency, Terrence's record, did a great job. All kinds of people contribute, right?
Yeah.
So it takes a village, to become a success. But the piece that we play is we help you to learn to write at a level that many, many, many people would love and buy into. That's our piece. That's where we are on the food chain, right?
Well, and those other people, those other pieces that are helping him along the journey, the only reason that they're there is because he's ready to go to that place.
Right.
And, most of you listening to this, well, I'm sure everyone listening to this podcast is not at that point yet. That's why you're listening to the podcast, because you're like, how do I do that? How do I get to this point where I've got record labels and I've got producers and I've got radio promoters and I've got, managers kind of like falling over themselves trying to like get to me. And that's how you get there. You have to be at that point before the dream. I mean, that's the dream, right? But I guarantee you, it will not look the way you think it will look when you get to that point. It's because there's a natural progression to the process, and so a lot of times we dream about the things that we want to have happen, but we don't dream in the right mindset or the right context, and so we think things are going to happen a certain way. And I think what I've learned over the years is a lot of times I end up getting to the dream. But when I'm living in that moment, when I'm living in it and I look back and I realize, hey, I've actually surpassed the dream, but it looks so different than I thought it would. And it's so much more fulfilling because I see all the work that went into getting to that point, and there's a stable foundation that I have underneath me. It wasn't just handed to me. It's something I worked for.
Right. And
So
I think a lot of people want to jump from their fantasy to reaching the world,
right?
But there's a progression. You start. It's one little tiny baby step at a time. We're just for an example. I know we talk about NCS a lot and pretty transparent about our journey because after 42 years of ministry and music business, here we are doing this thing, and I was kind of the reluctant entrepreneur, and I've learned a whole lot, right? But we've invested heavily, but it's been one tiny step at a time, and we're continuing to refine. How can we serve these songwriters at the highest level? How can we take every capacity, every ounce of energy, every tiny slice of knowledge we've got to pour into them through this podcast, through the membership, the NCS weekend intensives and the boot camp to help them fulfill their call. But I didn't jump from where I was, dreaming of NCS to where we are today with all the content, all the resources, all the listeners, the sponsor, everything that we've got, right? I had to put one foot in front of the other, and that's exactly the way you guys are that are listening.
Yes.
You got to take the next right step, whatever that next right step is for you.
That's so good. And again, the key that we talked about on the last episode was mentorship and coaching. That's the first piece. You need to have, like, you could co-write all day long, or you could songwrite all day long. But if you didn't have anyone to bounce these songs off of, I mean, it's kind of like as a music mixer, and I do mastering and mixing as well. If you don't have reference tracks when you're mixing, it can be really tough because, you get into your head and you get an idea of what you think something should sound like. And you think, okay, it sounds pretty good to me. And then you go put it in your car or you go listen to the radio and you're like, wow, my mix, this sounds way, way different. And you have to tweak it. So for context, having other people to bounce ideas off of, having mentors and people that pull you in to reality is really essential. And I guess just to sum it all up, mentorship, consistency and quality. And those key pillars or those key elements, I think, are definitely the building blocks to getting yourself to a point where you can then actually do the work of start developing and building your career as a songwriter, co-writing, being consistent, consistently posting, consistently writing, consistently recording, demoing, all that stuff. And then sharing and consistently interacting with people. and be authentic and be true to your mission and all that stuff. And then, then when you get on a discovery call with John and you're like, all right, I want to do this thing. I want you to coach me. Let's take it to the next level. Then you're ready. You don't have to do a lot of that groundwork to get to the point. Now, of course, come with all of your rawness. Come with all of your, you don't have to be polished. That's actually better if you're not, because then you can actually really work and refine with a good mentor. But dive in, become a boot camp member, and then you're already ready to go to that next level. And then, of course, the hope is you get people like Terrence. You've got all the right people coming into play. Yeah. It is a natural progression. There is no magic pill or formula to making it work. Yeah. But there certainly are principles like you talked about. And I think that's what people need to understand.
And one thing that I've realized lately talking to people is that some people feel like they have to be at a more developed level for the boot camp. And the truth is, no, we work with newbies. We work with people that don't really know very much. It's called a boot camp because it's basic training.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to keep people away.
That's so good. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Anyone can benefit.
Well, we're going to be digging into a lot more at the NCS monthly masterclass called Building an Audience for Your Music with Peter Hartzell, no E, of Treehouse Media on March 23rd. So if you're not an NCS member, no problem. Just jump over to NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com. Join for as low as $14.99 a month, or if you want to just pay, if you pay by the year, if you want to pay by the month, $16.99. Man, that's what, 3 or 4 lattes from Starbucks. So, just fast your weekly latte and put it into yourself, into songwriting. And, you're going to find a lot of benefit, but we hope you'll join that class. If you're already a member, thank you for being here. And if you want to know anything about the NCS membership or the boot camp, just jump over to the website. You can find everything about Peter Hartzell at treehousemediaco.com. And I hope you'll jump over there and check out what he has to offer. Look at the other podcasts that he's working with, some great people. Sadie Robertson of the Duck Dynasty folks, and there's some other folks you hadn't heard of, but they're great podcasts as well. So, Peter, looking forward to having you at the masterclass, and thanks for everything you've brought today.
It's such an honor to be part of this, and just so thankful that it's great to be able to be here in the Treehouse studio recording with you, and just honored to be part of this. So I'm excited for what's ahead.
Excellent. Well, you guys, thanks so much for being here. Jump over to wordworship.com. Check them out as one of our sponsors today, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, what a fantastic show today. I hope you caught all the value bombs that were dropped on this one, and that you'll begin to immediately incorporate them into your songwriting. You can get even more valuable songwriting tools and inspiration when you join NCS membership. You can become a part of a growing community of songwriters from around the world and tap into some of the most powerful resources available to step you up in your songwriting destiny. Check out NCS membership now at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com and get ready for some exponential power to help you fulfill your call to write. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.